Hello, everyone. Welcome to class today. Hope you're all having a great week so far, just at the very beginning of it. But we are in week 11 this week. It's already been 11 weeks since we started. That's pretty cool. Anybody have any questions? All right. So I mentioned last week that we are going to be having a guest speaker this week, and I will introduce Leon and his owner in just a couple minutes. They're getting ready for our class. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys so you can see what we're doing here. We're going to talk just a little bit first about, sorry, I thought I heard something about geckos, what they're like, but I just want to remind you guys, can you all see that Life Science 1? Great, awesome. So just a reminder, next week we will be dissecting our chicken foot. If you can find one and you're willing, I think it's fun to do. I think you'll really learn a lot and enjoy it. Remember, you could go to usually a butcher or a farmer's market. Sometimes specialty shops will have a chicken foot. You might be able to find one at an Asian or Hispanic grocery store if you have one in your area. If you can't, that's okay. You can observe. You can just watch. I just think you learn more when you do. So that's what a chicken foot looks like right there. And I will send you the rest of the supplies that you need later on this week. All right. Once again, we are going to be learning a little bit about geckos this week, which of course are a kind of a reptile. So I want to give you guys a couple of reminders. First of all, I want to remind you that it is an honor to have a guest come to our classroom. So we always want to treat our guests with respect. I'm not the least bit concerned about you guys because you're always very respectful anyway. So this is not an issue that I think we will have to deal with, but I just want to point that out as a reminder. So another thing that I want to remind you is to please keep your microphone muted unless you're talking. Again, you guys do a really great job with that, but we have had some problems in our class with a couple students talking too much in the chat box. So I have limited this. I've shut that ability off today. You will only be able to send a message to me. You will not be able to send messages back and forth to one another. So I want you to just limit your talking in the chat box only to questions that we have that you would have for our guest speaker. All right, so this is Leon. Leon is a crested gecko. So before we enjoy a little bit of time with Leon, I just want to go over a few things about lizards, a few things about geckos, give you a little more information. So remember this classification system that we use for organisms: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Dear King Philip cried, oh, for goodness sake. All right, so let's look at the top one, domain there. Lizards, like a Leon, like the geckos, are in the domain Eukarya. What does that mean? What do all members of domain Eukarya have in common? Mohammed.
A cell with a nucleus.
Exactly, they do. They are all eukaryotes. They have eukaryotic cells. So remember, we can divide cells into two categories. There are cells with a nucleus and cells without a nucleus. And eukarya are the ones that have a nucleus. All right, now, the other two members of domain Eukarya, besides, I'm sorry, the other two domains that we have are bacteria and archaea. And they're all the other kind of cells. They're made up of cells that don't have a nucleus. And they are, you know what bacteria is. We'll learn about archaea. They're the kind of like almost a little bit like bacteria, but enough that they can be in a different category. And they live in really hostile environments like hot springs and places with no oxygen and that. Okay, so the next under domain Eukarya, we have kingdom Animalia. That was pretty easy to understand, right? They're animals. They're in the animal kingdom. They're not plants. They're not fungi. They are animals. Now we have phylum, phylum Chordata. What does chordata mean? What do all members of phylum Chordata have in common? Mohammed.
A backbone.
Yeah, they all have a backbone at some point in their development. They have a spinal cord. Now, they don't all have bone, right? We say backbone. They have some kind of spinal cord with a little something around it. Some of them have cartilage. They don't all have bone, but thinking backbone is a good way to remember that. And then, of course, we've got class Reptilia, order Squamata, family Geckonidae, and then look at the genus and the species. It's just gecko spelled a different way. So they are in the genus gecko with 2 Ks, and then their species is gecko with a C and a K. Now, remember, when we're talking about all the reptiles, there's 4 orders of them. You would have read about that in the book, in the lessons. So there are, look at that first word. Let me try that one. Rhynchocephalia. Rhynchocephalia. Those are tuataras. Then we have crocodilia, which are alligators and crocodiles. Squamata, which are snakes, lizards, and amphisbaenians. And then we have testadunes. Those are tortoises and turtles. So Leon is a lizard. So Leon is going to be in the order Squamata. So this is what we mean when we say reptiles. A reptile is an ectothermic vertebrate that has lungs and scaly skin. What does ectothermic mean? Felicity.
Cold-blooded.
Yes, cold-blooded is a good term for that. It means that they get their temperature from their surroundings. If it's warm outside, they're warmer. If it's cool outside, they're cooler. Their temperature fluctuates. We're endotherms. Our temperature doesn't fluctuate very much. We have to stay within a pretty narrow range of temperature. All right, now we've got all those different orders right here. We've got these different, there we go, different orders of reptiles. Since we're talking about Leon today, we're going to focus here on the Squamata and specifically on lizards. We're going to talk about, lizards in general. So lizards can be tiny, 2 centimeters long. So that's even smaller than that one in the picture right there, yeah, on the hand. And they can be pretty big too. The Komodo dragon is a huge lizard, and it can weigh up to 165 pounds. So that's pretty tiny, all the way to pretty big. Now, the really little ones usually are insectivores. What does that mean? What do I mean when I say they are an insectivore? Hiba.
They eat insects.
They eat insects, yeah. But they may also be herbivores. What does that mean? Felicity.
They eat plants.
Yes, exactly. So they usually eat insects, but some of them, some different species of them will eat plants. The bigger ones are usually herbivores, but some are carnivores and some are omnivores. What do I mean by carnivore? Hannah.
They eat meat.
Yeah, they eat meat.
animals.
And then omnivore? Go ahead, Hannah.
They eat plants and animals.
Exactly. They're going to eat plants and animals. So you can see there's a wide range of diets among these lizards. Now, this is a monitor lizard here. Monitor lizards are carnivores, so they're pretty big and they tend to eat other animals. They're known for being pretty smart, and they have very powerful limbs. They have sharp claws, and they can come from tiny little mangrove monitors all the way to the Komodo dragon. Run. Yeah, exactly. So Komodo dragons are the largest living lizards in the world. They can get up to 10 feet long. That's taller than most of your rooms. Most ceilings are not 10 feet high. And like I said, they can get up to 165 pounds. So I'm not going to show you guys a picture of a Komodo dragon eating. It's kind of gross. They go after large prey like deer and goats and water buffalo. Yeah, and that's what they eat. So foraging strategies. What's a foraging strategy? What do those 2 words together mean? Hiba.
Like kind of how they can collect their food or whatever.
Yeah, you're very quiet here, but it's kind of hard to hear you. If you could move a little closer to your mouth. I think I heard you okay that time, but next time move a little closer. So yeah, it's how they find their food, how they go about getting what they're going to eat. So there's passive foragers and active. And you can understand what those two words mean. Passive means that they basically sit and wait. They wait until something walks by and then they take it. Active foragers move in order to encounter their prey. They chase after their prey. I think lizard eyes are pretty cool. So some of them have eyes that move independently. The eye on one side can move differently than the eye on the other. We can't do that. Alistair.
About the passive hunter, are those only, sorry, are those only carnivores?
No, they can be. So all of these can interchange. There's a lot of variety in the lizard group of animals. So some little ones, remember the little ones usually eat insects, but they might eat plants. Some of them are going to be passive foragers and some of them are going to be active. The bigger ones, most of them eat plants, but some of them can eat animals and some of them can eat animals and plants. The bigger ones don't tend to be insectivores. So of the bigger ones, some of them wait until the prey goes by and others of them will chase after them. So it really depends on the different species. So think about having movable eyes. Think about being able to move this eye on the side over here. You can look behind you a little bit better. So you can be looking in front of you with this eye and behind you with the other eye. That's pretty good eyesight. And it really helps them to tell how far away something is. Do you guys remember last week when we were looking at the lizard, the eagle video, we saw that nictitating membrane. Many lizards also have one of those inner eyelids that is either whitish or translucent. So it can move across the eye in order to protect it from dust and keep it moist. So this is a cool video that shows that nictitating membrane. It gets closer here now. See that, how it closes on the inside? Even closer. Yeah, think of it like a windshield wiper to keep the eye clean. Now, many lizards will stay with their eggs or their nest site, but as soon as the babies hatch, they're gone. Very little care is given after they hatch. They leave. So those babies they hatch able to take care of themselves, able to find the food that they need. So there are 37 families of lizards, and in those families, there are 6,300 species. Now, there's a lot of debate among scientists about how we should group lizards, but most people think that we should group lizards into these four main categories: iguanas and their relatives, skinks and their relatives, anguimorph lizards, and geckos and snake lizards. So today we're talking more about geckos. I want to see what geckos can do before we spend a little bit of time with Leo. So as it says here, Leon is a gecko. They're found on every continent except Antarctica, and they live in habitats from deserts to rainforests to cold mountain slopes. Big range in where they can live. They can be tiny, half an inch long, half an inch gecko, all the way up to more than 17 inches long. So that's like almost 1.5 feet. Usually geckos eat fruit and insects and the nectar from flowers. One cool thing about a gecko is that when it falls, its tail twists to the right and it can land on its feet. Kind of like, have you seen a cat? When cats fall, they always land on their feet. Geckos are the same way. So one of the things that makes geckos different from other lizards is that they lay their eggs in pairs instead of large groups, and they can chirp and make barking noises. So most geckos don't have that outer eyelid, but they have pretty cool feet. They have toes that let them climb up walls. Talk about that in just a second here. So gecko tails are kind of cool too. They help them balance as they climb up branches. They also work as storage tanks for fat, and they camouflage them to help them to disappear into the environment. So one thing that's kind of cool about them is they're able to shed their tails. So see that one on the right? That has shed its tail, and they can do that on purpose if a predator attacks them. Now that distracts the predator while the gecko runs away. The predator will be paying attention to the tail, which often is still moving as the gecko runs away to safety. Most geckos are nocturnal. What does that mean? Felicity?
They're awake at night.
Yeah, they're awake at night. So most kinds of geckos are nocturnal, but they have really good night vision. They can even see color in the dark. Have you guys ever noticed that as it starts getting dark outside, you can't really see color? You see shades of gray. Notice it tonight when it gets dark if you haven't. Well, that's not true of geckos. They have different kinds of receptors in their eyes than we do. They can even see ultraviolet, which we can't see at all. So we're barely able to make out color at all in dim moonlight, but geckos can go about the world that looks very colorful to them. And they can hear very well too. So that makes them easily able to find food and avoid their predators. So like I said, they can make noises like chirping and barking and clicking. And here's a cute video of a Madagascar day gecko making a squeaking sound. So I said that a lot of species of geckos don't have eyelids. So they sometimes have what's called a spectacle. So this is a transparent scale that covers the eye. And they lick that in order to keep it clean, like a windshield wiper wipes off the water from your windshield. So this is a video of Leon. You'll see him getting some water off of the walls of his tank and then cleaning his spectacle with his tongue. So here he is, licking the water off of the tank. I'd like to be able to lick your eyeball. Pretty cool. And geckos can sometimes change color. In fact, most of them can. They can change color so that they're camouflaged in their surroundings. And they don't use their eyes to figure out what color to be. Their skin is filled with light sensitive proteins. And those proteins sense the environment. And then they send a message to their brain telling them what color to be. And they can also take on the pattern, not just the color. Look at this gecko right here. It actually looks like a leaf. It's not just the color of the leaf. It's taken on the pattern of the leaf too, so that it can look textured. And there are some flying geckos. Well, they don't really fly, but they glide. They glide enough that they look like they're flying. Some of them can glide up to 200 feet in a single bound, even though they're only 6 inches long. They use these flaps on their skin and a tail like a rudder. And lifespan out in the wild is about 5 years. You guys think they live longer or shorter in captivity? How many think they live longer? Put your thumbs up if you think they live longer in captivity. How many think they live less time in captivity? Yeah, we're about half. They actually, live, they can live up to in the wild, they can live up to 5 years. A well cared for gecko can live 20 years in captivity. So that's 4 times longer. And I told you guys about these feet. They have really amazing feet. It's one of the coolest things about them. They can even walk up walls and upside down. So take a look at the pads of the feet right here. We're going to zoom in on that. They're not sticky. When you touch them, they don't feel sticky. They don't walk up the walls or upside down because of stickiness on their feet. They have these microscopic hairs, hundreds of them all over their toes. These are called setae, and each one of these splits off into even smaller bristles. So the toes of geckos bond to a surface when electrons from their toes and electrons from the wall interact with one another. Have you guys ever taken a balloon and rubbed it on your hair and then stuck it to the wall? The same kind of force allows geckos to climb up the wall. So these setae right here are very, very flexible. So when a gecko jumps quickly to another surface or changes direction, those toe hairs absorb a ton of energy and they redirect that energy. So that flexibleness, that stretchiness that they have makes it possible for them to walk across surfaces at any angle. except one thing. If the surface is wet, they can't walk on it because the electrons don't interact with one another in the same way. So if it's wet, they're going to start slipping down. So here's a video of a gecko jumping. This is a crested gecko, just like Leon. So let's watch the toes in action as he jumps to some branches. Because that's 1 foot that he's holding on with. And that's so adhesive. There's so much of that electrostatic force that it is able to stay on that leaf with just one hand grabbing it. All right, let's spend some time with Leon. Are you ready, Shanna? All right, everybody, this is Miss Shanna. Miss Shanna is my daughter. So she's
Hi, everybody. I'm almost ready. I'm convincing Leon to come out and say hello.
oh, so
have to wait
Leon, like I said, is nocturnal. How do you think Leon feels about being awakened at this time of day? This would be like somebody waking you up in the middle of the night and saying, come on, it's time to teach a class.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
going, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Talk to me in the morning.
He's coming.
All
Oh, and
right.
he looks very cool today. Right.
Good. You'll have to explain to us why he looks different from one day to the next.
Yeah.
All right. So
All
I'm
right.
going to turn off my screen and pin Shanna so that you can see her. Hold on. Okay. So everybody, you can all see Shanna big on your screen. If not, you may need to change your settings a little bit. So this is Shanna and this is Leon.
Yeah, this is Leon, my crested gecko. He's waking up slowly. I wanted to show you. This is a really cool coloring on Leon. So, like Dr. Joseph was saying, some geckos can change their color, and crested geckos do. Now, usually, it's not quite as dramatic as like a chameleon, but this is a really unusual color pattern for Leon. So it's pretty cool how see how he's really light, really pale, and then really dark. And then under here, he's kind of pale under his neck. I think it's because I woke him up because he was sleeping. It's pretty cool. So anyway, I just thought that was neat. So yeah, Leon is a crested gecko. I'm obsessed with him. I think they are the coolest little guys. They are, my favorite thing about them is that for about 100 years, scientists thought that crested geckos were extinct. About 100 years went by, and suddenly there were scientists in New Caledonia studying wildlife, and a crested gecko fell out of the tree and into his lap. And they said, well, I guess they're not extinct after all. They're just really, really good at hiding. And that's good for them because they're little, they're a little prey species, but they're really resilient. They're really good at staying hidden. Yeah. So Leon is also one of those geckos that you guys heard about, has no eyelids. He has no eyelids and he doesn't blink. He doesn't close his eyes when he's sleeping. It's a little bit weird getting used to it. It's like a little alien in the house. He has those sticky fingers that we were talking about. And then I'll show you guys. You can see the webbing in his back legs. See how his back legs, you could totally use that as a sail if you were flying.
So can I ask a question about the eye? We learned that some lizards have a nictitating membrane. Does he have that?
Nope.
No.
He
So
doesn't
he
have
just
anything.
cleans his eye with his tongue.
Yep. That's it. It's kind of funny because another thing that video that you watched of him cleaning his eye, you could see his throat going in and out as he was breathing. Crested geckos breathe in 2 different ways. Sometimes you'll see his sides expanding, just like us. It almost looks like his ribs are going in and out. And sometimes you'll see him breathing like this, but not at the same time. So they're pumping air into their bodies and then processing it with their lungs, 2 separate processes. So the cool thing about that is they process the oxygen and then they don't need any more for a little while. So they don't look like they're breathing at all. So when Leon is asleep, he looks like he's not breathing. His eyes are not closed. And in fact, his eyeballs kind of sink back into his skull a little bit when he's asleep. And sometimes he gets really pale. So I always say Leon kind of scared me the first couple of months that we had him because I thought he was sick or he was dead in his tank. And no, turns out he was just sleeping without any eyelids. It's very strange to look at. You guys are also the first class to see Leon since he did drop his tail earlier this year, which was kind of an amazing thing because I was really worried about him. Most geckos, Leon is, I think, 7 now, 7 or 8. And most geckos do drop their tail at some point in their lives. They don't, most of them don't make it all the way to the end with the tail, but just because they're skittish little guys, I was worried. I was worried that he would have trouble adjusting, figuring out how to move around, how to jump around his tank. I saw him slip, try to do a jump and fall one time. After that, he would never know. He would never know that anything was ever any different. Yeah, he eats fruit for the most part. It's a special blend, not just fruit from home. It's a special blend made for them that has all the nutrients that they need. And he also, on occasion, he doesn't need to eat insects all the time, but on occasion we'll get him some crickets so he has a little hunting activity.
I would love it if you guys have any questions, if you would ask some questions. Sorry, I'm trying to get my chat here so I can see it. You can, oh, Alistair has one. Go ahead, Alistair.
Yeah.
How big is his is it a cage or how big is his habitat?
I will show you guys. It's very big. It's I think it's 1.5 feet wide by 1.5 feet deep and 3 feet tall. So because crested geckos are arboreal lizards, they live in the trees. It's really important to have a tall enclosure for them rather than a long one because they pretty much always want to be at the tops of the trees. He'll come down onto the ground and wander around a little bit at night when he's first active. But other than that, he's up in the trees. I don't know. Did you guys hear that in the background?
No.
His automatic misting system went off. They have they have specific humidity and moisture requirements. So we got him on an automated system that sprays him down every hour.
Anybody got another question?
I think
Oh,
one of
look
my
at that.
favorite.
Hold him close again because you can really see the patterning on his, turn him sideways. Look at the pattern on him. Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's looking cool today.
My
favorite thing.
Sorry.
I just think my favorite unexpected thing about crested geckos is how soft they are. His feet are soft. His belly is soft. Even his little spikes, his crest, where they got the name from, even those are soft. They're not hard like some other lizards might be. It's just to look a little bit scary. They're not actually spiky.
Makes him look a little bit like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Alistair.
So this isn't as much a question, but Keaton and I, as Dr. Karen Joseph knows, that we do work at the zoo near us. And we do have
cool.
2 geckos, Billy and Djibouti. So my brother keeps telling me that one of them has a weird name. I'm like, no, it's fine. But I haven't been able to see them yet because they're in a room that I don't have access to yet. But I'm going to either soon.
That's so fun. I
cool.
love geckos. I've gotten to work with a couple of different kind of lizards. I used to work at a children's museum. That's how I started loving. I mean, I loved reptiles and insects and amphibians since I was a very little kid. But also, that was like my first job where I got to work with them, and it was amazing. I got to dip my toes into what it's like to care for many different animals, and I came out with all of the ones that I took care of. The crested gecko was the first one I was interested in having in my home. They're just so fun and cool, but all of them are so. We had Chinese water monitors or water dragons, which were awesome, but I would never have at my house. But then there are these guys, and they're just so cool. And leopard geckos, I know you guys saw those too. They're also they're just such cool little creatures. Yeah, little tiny dinosaurs.
So you said that he eats mostly fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Muhammad has a question.
Yeah.
Is there something special about this gecko that's different than the other geckos? Other than like its crested part?
This one?
Yeah.
No, he's a crested gecko. He just is only different in that he lost his tail. He used to have a nice long tail, but he dropped it. earlier this year. It was very, very weird and strange for me personally, but but no, he is a crested gecko. He's a kind of he's kind of on the medium to smaller side. Some crested geckos get larger, but he's kind of a little petite little guy.
Hiba.
Is his tail like before he dropped it? Is it like straight or like yeah?
So one of the coolest things about crested gecko tails is that they're actually considered to be semi-prehensile. So do you guys know what prehensile tails are? I bet you do, right? You guys have talked
Go ahead
about
and
those.
explain it. They're,
Oh,
they're
me?
pretty- yeah.
Yeah, so prehensile tail is a tail that instead of just being like a dog's tail that wags or moves or is used for expression, it's used as an appendage. So they can grab things with it. They can usually a prehensile tail means you can wrap it around things. So crested geckos have semi-prehensile tails, so they can't grab things like a monkey can. They can't use it quite like that. But their tail, when they are walking through like the branches or climbing over your hands, it sort of just naturally wraps a little bit around. And it has the same little hairs that you guys were talking about that are on their feet that make them sticky. It has the same stuff on the very end of their tail. So they can actually use their tail to grab onto stuff pretty tightly. So it was not uncommon for him to be, moving around and wind up hanging just from his tail. And they don't weigh very much at all. So it was easy for him to support himself.
So Aaliyah has two questions. Does he shed his skin?
He does. He sheds his skin you can actually kind of see his face is a little bit grayish. You can see there. He's probably getting ready to shed in the next couple of days. He'll shed about every 2 weeks. And the funniest thing about crested geckos is they eat their shed skin as it's coming off. So like he'll reach back and grab it and pull and eat it, munch for a little while, and then grab a little more and pull it off. And it's full of really good, healthy nutrients for them. So it makes sense, but it is super weird. It looks like they're like taking off a sweatshirt.
And Aaliyah also says, how long does it take for him to regrow his tail?
Crested geckos will never regrow their tails. Some geckos do, like leopard geckos will grow their tail back and it'll be a little different maybe, but crested geckos never do. It's a once and done event in their lives because they adapt so well. I think they really never needed to adapt to regrow their tails because it's not a big deal for them.
Hannah, I saw your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes. How long is Leon?
How long is he? That's a really good question. I think he's about 6 inches long from nose to his little nub.
To what used to be the tail?
Yeah.
Alistair wants to know. Go ahead.
Affectionately in the reptile community, they refer to crested geckos who have dropped their tails. They are referred to as frog butts because their little butt looks like a frog. I think it's very sweet.
Alistair wondered if the tail is the strongest body part.
I don't think so. He again, his body is so different. That's one of the things that is so interesting about watching a reptile or an amphibian or a fish or a bird, animals that are really, really different from mammals, is that his body is not, it just works so differently that I don't think he needs to be very strong because his body is just very efficient. It only has what he needs and not like anything extra. So he doesn't have a ton of muscle. He's, pretty much his skeletal system is right under his skin. He has that little extra, I just think their extra skin in their back legs is so cool. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, but they may not be strong, but they're really, really efficient at doing what they have to do to survive.
Hamid.
Does its eyes move in 2 different ways at the same time?
No, his eyes don't move at all, actually. His eyeballs don't move at all. He moves his head only. You can see his little, there he is. His eyeballs are, the coolest thing about his eyes too is that in the daytime you can I don't know, can you see guys the slits in his eyes pretty clearly?
Mhm.
Or in his color? So his iris is, I mean, almost completely closed, right? There's his pupil is tiny, tiny, tiny. And at nighttime, when it's dark, his eyes are big and black. So he looks like really cute at night with these really like big wide eyes. And in the daytime, I think he just looks like a dragon.
Any other questions? Hannah,
What's his personality like?
Oh, he's so sweet. He really from we had adopted him from someone who couldn't care for him anymore. He was about 2 years old, and I've heard of crested geckos being flighty, being jumpy, being not wanting to be touched, like, but he's from day one. He's just been super sweet. He loves coming out and hanging out with us. He doesn't like get scared or jump around. I love him. He's so sweet.
Mohammed,
Does he only eat fruits or is he like an omnivore?
They are technically omnivores, but because they were arboreal, they live in trees in tropical region. They eat a lot of fruit because it's an easy food for them, but they also do eat insects. So we'll get him crickets every now and then. Yeah.
so
Another
what
cool
do you
thing,
feed
actually,
him?
Let me tell you about his. While you can see the top of his head, you see these little spots on the top of his head.
Mhm.
He didn't always have those, and so of course, being a concerned pet caregiver, I looked it up, and crested geckos there's a lot of different patterns that are sort of bred specifically to look different ways, and naturally occurring patterns in their skin and their coloring. And Dalmatian spots is something that a lot of crested geckos have the genes for, but they don't show until they're older. So but because they shed many, many layers of skin at a time, every time that they shed, these spots can, as they get into their like 6, 7, 8, he jumped on you guys. As they get into like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, these spots can just suddenly appear because they've shed enough layers of skin that all of a sudden you can see them. So I think that's pretty cool. He never had these spots before, and they're sort of starting to pop up as he gets older. So go ahead. What were you going to say, Mom?
About feeding him. How do you give him fruit and
Oh yeah. So we have there's a food. There's a pre-mixed powder that's made by like reptile science people, that they put all kinds of like the specific nutrient, just like dog food is required to have specific nutrients and meet nutritional requirements. Same thing for him. So he has different foods that are flavored. They have different fruit smoothie mixes. It's a little powdered mix that you mix with water, and it makes like a little fruit paste, and he drinks it up sometimes, and sometimes he just walks in it and tracks it all over his enclosure.
so what other than feeding him, what do you have to do for him daily? How do you care for Leon?
So like I said, they have pretty specific temperature and humidity requirements. So it's important that the humidity be high enough that their skin is moist, so they have nice sheds and their shed skin doesn't get stuck, but that it's not too high so that it's too high for their respiratory system and they have breathing issues, all those kind of things. So it's important to make sure that you have monitoring, like little systems to monitor all those levels in the tank at all times. They need a UVB light or direct sunlight, and and that's about it. So that's about it for us. We have the automatic misting system. We check his moisture and all that, and then he lives in a palace of an enclosure that kind of takes care of the rest of the work. I'll show you guys and talk about that at some point. But all in all, I always say you're bringing an animal into your home, you need to be ready to put in the work that making sure that they have a good life requires, because that was your choice to bring them into your home. But as far as reptiles go, crested geckos are really, really relatively low maintenance.
Beth.
How old is Leon?
I was just trying to think of that. I think 2018, he was 2. So what does that make him? 9? No.
8.
Who can do math? 8. Yeah.
Aaliyah asked if he can swim.
That's a really great question. I do know that it is not recommended to have deep enough water for them to swim in their enclosures because they're prone to drowning. So probably not. I guess that means probably not. But animals are incredible, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could. And it's just a risk that people don't want to take. But we've never tried it, and I don't think we will.
Felicity.
I just got an answer. They will only swim when there is no other option. So they
Oh.
will try, but it is not something they are naturally good at.
Felicity.
What temperature do you have to keep his enclosure at?
So he's again tropical. So he's going to be from anywhere from like 70 degrees to 90. We keep it around 75 to 85 for the most part.
How far can Leon jump?
Pretty far, honestly. I always worry because he's so little, you know. I'm afraid he's gonna. But you guys saw that video of the gecko in the tree, right? That was a huge jump. So I think he doesn't really usually jump very far. He'll hop around his tank, little hops over the computer, but I think he could hop a good foot and a half if he wanted to, which for such a tiny little guy is kind of a lot.
Does he have teeth? And if so, does he bite you?
So I asked somebody this once, and they said if a crested gecko is unlikely to ever bite you just because of their their nature. They don't really have that temperament. But if they do ever bite you, it's not going to be of any consequence because they don't have hardly any jaw strength at all. So their teeth is one plate of teeth, and no, he's never even tried to bite.
Muhammad.
Does he run?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's fast. He's very fast. Now again, he doesn't really have much opportunity to run because he's pretty chill and he's not going to like jump off my hand and run across the room. But there have been a couple times that he has shown us how fast he is. Yes. Like once he ran up my arm and jumped onto the back of the couch and ran across the back of the couch. And he's like shockingly fast.
Has he ever gotten lost, or are you afraid that he will? What would happen if he ran away?
I think we'd probably just see him on the walls a little bit later. Because he has never gotten away, but crested geckos want to go up for the most part. So he's not likely to hide behind furniture. He probably would find a bookshelf and climb up it if he got lost. I have seen people on the internet who their crested geckos got out and they just suddenly are on the wall later that night. So not too concerning.
Aaliyah asks, can you have another gecko live in the same enclosure as Leon?
They are not ever recommended to live together. They fight.
Hannah.
Do you ever let Leon outside?
No, the one thing that I would love to do with him sometime is, again, it's kind of hard because of the humidity requirements and you have to wait until the weather's just perfect, but there are mesh, like window screen enclosures that you can get for them. Here he goes. He's thinking about jumping. Look at him. And I would love to get him a screen enclosure and have some outside adventures, take him outside in the sunshine.
Beth.
Where
He's
is
ready.
where is his natural habitat? Like, would he live if he was in the wild?
It's a little island called New Caledonia, and it's off the coast of Madagascar. It's very small. It's a very tiny little island. So it's, again, not surprising that they were able to hide there.
It's interesting how, that was a good jump, Leon.
Good job.
It is interesting how they went from being considered extinct to being a very common pet now.
Yeah. I think in the process of rehabilitating them as a species and wanting to like repopulate, people realize that they're really, really wonderful. They're not really companions. They're not like snuggly, but they're just pleasant. They're very, very pleasant animals to have around. So I think people kind of fell in love with them.
Aaliyah wants to know if he needs baths.
Nope, he doesn't need baths because he sheds his own skin. He cleans his eyes and he sheds everything else.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge in taking care of Leon?
I think it's hard with a non-mammal species, especially, to tell when something's wrong. I think that's the hardest part, is that, they're very instinct driven. They don't feel or express pain or sickness the same way that we do. Even your dog, it's kind of harder to tell if something's wrong. It's even more so with a non-mammal animal. So that's tough. Is we're really lucky that we have an exotic vet very nearby. But not everybody does. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're ever considering a non-mammal pet for your house, and even some of the smaller mammals. Having somebody who you can go, is something wrong, and they can tell you is really important.
Beth?
Can you show us like his enclosure?
This
Yeah,
would be
I
a
will.
good time now.
Sure. Okay, perfect. Let me
Aaliyah
See.
wants to know how long he can go without eating.
Well, he typically eats every 3 days, like every day and a half, every other day. But it's like not unusual for them to go 3 to 5 days between eating, and they probably could go longer. But he lives a pampered life, so he never.
So
waits
do you
long.
only give him food every day and a half, or does he just
Yes.
only eat it?
Yeah, every day and a half, and he never even comes close to eating it. Oh yeah, and I know that you had said this. I don't know if we said this before, but they crested geckos, because they're so small and their bodies use water very efficiently and they don't sweat like we do, etc. He doesn't need very much water in his like extra. He doesn't need to drink a lot of extra water, like a water bowl, like a dog, because his body just doesn't use much, and they use it very efficiently when they do.
Yeah, they have very efficient kidneys. So
Yeah.
kidneys are the organ that we have that takes a lot of the water out of our blood, and reptile kidneys concentrate that urine so that they don't lose much.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna move you guys with me. Okay. So here's Leon's enclosure, his little palace. So this is what I was saying. This is really tall. I think it's about 3 feet tall. And then let me see. I'm hoping that this is at a good angle for you guys. Can you get me a little closer? Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, perfect. So this is a bioactive vivarium. So you can see there's live plants in here, real dirt. And what you can't see underneath the real dirt is the real bugs that also live in the soil. There are layers here. Let me see if you guys can see this. There are layers of drainage here. So this has clay balls in the bottom to sort of soak up extra water and then help it evaporate back up through the soil. And there's soil and charcoal and all kinds. It's just a whole little mini ecosystem. It's like a little forest that the bugs in the soil we call them our cleanup crew. And they help to clean up any excess waste, any extra skin that Leon drops, any dead leaves from the plants that are in here, etc. So they take care of a whole lot of the cleaning of the enclosure for us. And there's our
So-
little guy.
You don't have to clean it.
No, so we do still clean. I mean, obviously you can see he gets his food everywhere. So we clean that, and we clean the water stains off the glass. But other than that, we don't clean, like, we don't have to clean up his poop or his extra skin or anything like that. It's all taken care of. It's pretty sweet deal.
Aaliyah asks if does he eat vegetables?
Nope, just fruit and insects. Yeah.
So when you give him crickets, are they live crickets?
Yes.
So he's
Yeah,
a little
so-
predator. He goes after them.
He does, and he will go after them. The crickets also are. I'm shocked at the places that they're able to get to in this enclosure. So they don't just stay on the ground. They'll like actually be crawling up in the leaves up here. So they make it a little easier for him.
Hannah,
what types of fruit do you feed him?
So let me see. Currently, his current favorite is banana and papaya. He also has a watermelon fruit that he loves.
Beth,
What other colors can he change to?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Leon, it's kind of incredible because I tend to say like, oh, he doesn't change his color that much, but he really does. He can go from like, you can see this really pale color on top of his head here. That's like about the palest that he'll get. And sometimes he gets that pale all over his body. And then sometimes you see back here by his tail how he's much darker. He'll get that color all over. And sometimes you can sort of see his little throat is a little bit orange. I don't know if you can see that with the light where it is. But sometimes his throat gets really orange. Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, I turned the light on. I didn't even notice. There we go.
So just the throat, or does his body turn orange too?
No, just his throat.
This is a
Yeah,
really
really
good view of him breathing.
Yeah. You can see him. That's where he's pumping the air into his lungs, and he'll use it later. Isn't that cool?
It is cool.
Yeah. And you can
Yeah.
see his little eyelashes here too. They used to be called eyelash crested geckos because of those little ridges above his eyeballs.
Awesome. So do you think that this is a good pet? A crested
Yeah.
gecko?
Yeah, I'm biased, but yes, I love him. I love him. He's been living with us for, oh gosh, what did I say? 5 or 6 years now. And he's just wonderful. Truly.
So being a
Just so
nocturnal animal, does he keep you awake at night?
No, we have him in the living room, so it's kind of nice that he can. We sort of see him when it's getting dusk, and he'll be hopping around while we're watching TV before bed, and then we go to bed, and he has the evening. So they're also being nocturnal. They also do have like a dip period, sort of their nap time in the middle of the night. So he also sleeps for a little bit through the night, but he's very active at the start of the evening and then just before the sun comes up.
Muhammad,
Does he need to go to like a vet or something?
Yep. We take him to the vet about once a year, and then anytime we think something's wrong or have any suspicion that anything could be off, because like I said, it's really hard to tell from just looking at him.
so how can you tell? What makes you think something might be wrong?
If he, so with most animals, what you want to look for is that they are going to the bathroom, they are eating, and with reptiles that they are shedding, that they're shedding well. So Leon was having a little bit of trouble shedding a couple of months ago. He would get extra skin stuck on his nails, on his like claws. And we kind of tried a couple of things and it wasn't really working. So we took him to the vet just to see if there was something wrong. Turns out there wasn't. It probably was just a sort of a weather change in humidity that affected his levels, but the vet gave us some, and he had an eye issue. Oh, that's right. He had an issue with his eye where his eye sort of looked really cloudy to me. And I had no clue, no idea what to do. So we took him to the vet for that, and they gave us little eye drops. We had to drip. It's very funny because their spectacle is waterproof, right? So it's like got a nice coating. Water doesn't stick to it. So we would have to give him these eye drops, and it just rolled right off his eyeball. But it did help, and he's all better now. So yeah, having a good vet is really important.
Hannah,
Does Leon make a lot of noise?
No, really not at all. The most noise he makes is in the evenings when he starts hopping around. We'll hear him like land against the wall or fall. Sometimes he'll try to jump from a high place and he falls, but he'll catch himself. And yeah, other than that, we've heard him like make there's this little very, very, very quiet peeping sound that crested geckos sometimes make, and the best that scientists understand is that it's sort of an interpersonal communication, like it's a way that they communicate with other geckos. And we've heard him making that sound once or twice, and it is so cute and so quiet. But it's only really if you like hold him next to your ear that you can hear it. So no, he's super, super quiet.
interesting. All right, we have 30 seconds left. Anybody else have a question? Muhammad.
Did he do anything crazy?
Well, yeah, when he dropped his tail, that was pretty wild. He was it was when we were trying to, change his humidity and transfer him from a higher humidity tank to a lower humidity tank, and he was like, he's usually so chill, and he was freaking out, just absolutely freaking out for whatever reason, and That's when he dropped his tail, which was a wild. But he was fine then.
Was
He
it
didn't
a-
seem
a-
bothered by it.
Was it a quick loss? Like 1
Yes.
second he had it and the next second
Yes.
it was gone?
Absolutely, yes. It was instantaneous. And his, like you said, his tail kept moving for like a good 30 seconds.
I
It was
think we'll
very,
talk about that
very
next week, guys. We'll talk about how they lose their tails. It's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting process.
It's incredible. And after he dropped his tail, I really looked into the muscular structure that allows for that to happen. And it's just incredible. Really, really like weird and a little sad, but very, very cool. And a great defense mechanism.
All right, we are out of time. Anybody, one last quick question? All right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Shanna. Thank you, Leon.
Guys, I love Leon and I love getting to let other people love him too. So thanks for being here, guys.
All right. You guys have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.